Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the power steering valve on the John Deere 4000 series machines. These valves, they were made in Poland and they were used pretty much across all the 4000 series and a lot of the 3000 series. So pretty much any machine John Deere that was made back in 2000 to 2010, these valves were really common. And they are usually maintenance free, right? They don't really fail. They're really good valves. And I can say I've had a ton of John Deeres over the years, and I've only had one or two machines that ever leaked at the power steering valve. So this is not a common thing, right? However, when they do leak, the option that you have, the easiest option that you have is to replace the valve, which if you go on the John Deere parts websites, you can find this valve for about $1,500 brand new. So for $1,500, if you don't want to mess around with pulling the valve apart and changing the seals, then you could change this out with a brand new valve off the shelf, $1,500, and you're done, right? So obviously that's not a really good option, especially if you're living on a budget and you don't want to spend your life savings on the valve, right? So let's talk about other options. So the other options you have, you could find a used valve from a used Tractor Supply parts store. That's an option for sure. But when I did some research and I found that you can actually get a kit that gives you all the seals that you need to rebuild this valve yourself. And when this valve fails, the one or two times that I've had it fail, it's not a common thing again. It's always the shaft seal, right? It's always the shaft seal, which is this area here, right? So the typical symptoms you'll have is that this will start to let hydraulic fluid past it, and it will just come out in a steady rate, almost like pouring oil out of a canister at a pretty slow but steady rate, and it'll just drip down the outside of the housing. It ends up all over the floor, all over the fuse panel, and makes a mess, right? So it's not a complete failure. It starts with a slow leak, maybe a drip or two, and then turns into a consistent pouring of fluid out of that shaft area. And eventually it becomes so bad that you have to do something because there's oil just everywhere. So what I would recommend you do, and if you wanna do this in a kind of a budget-friendly way, is you're gonna tear down this pump. And you're gonna replace the shaft seal and the shaft dust seal, right? Those two seals are the ones I just changed on this pump. And really what you're looking at are these two seals. This one here is the dust seal on the outside. That's just a traditional hydraulic dust seal. It keeps anything out of that shaft area. It doesn't really hold the fluid back. This guy here is the compression hydraulic seal around the shaft that holds all your fluid in the mechanism, right? So this guy holds the fluid in. This guy is a dust seal and keeps dust and debris out of that shaft area. So when you think about this, the pump is fine. It works fine left and right. It just leaks, and really all you need are those two seals. So what I would recommend you do is you tear this down and you go online and you order up. There's a company called Midwest Steering, and they sell the original seal kit for this pump. It's a little hard to see with the lights in here, but it comes with all the seals that you would need to rebuild the entire pump, right? And it's everything in there. They have two different size shaft seals because the manufacturer over the years changed its design, perhaps along the way. So this bag of seals will do any style pump from this manufacturer that is a rotary style steering valve, right, that was used on these tractors. And there's a couple different models. I'm going to show you which model I have. There's a plate on the other side of the pump itself. But that's what you're going to do. You're going to go online, you're going to get the seal kit, and then you can simply pull this valve off the machine. There's 4 bolts in the bottom, and then there's 4 hoses that go into it. And you're going to disassemble this valve on a workbench, and you're just going to change these 2 seals, right? And that's it. Like, there's nothing else wrong with this valve. And that will save you, I want to say the seal kit was $150. You could probably get it cheaper if you went to a generic replacement, which I wouldn't really recommend, but You could probably do this cheaper. I would definitely recommend the kit that the original manufacturer makes and sells. It's $150. You do this once and you're done, right? And you just saved yourself, you know, I don't know, $1,350 and maybe more, right, after tax on a brand new pump. So that's my advice on this. I'm going to show you the model number on this pump, and so you can reference that. And the part number for the bag is right there, right? So you're going to go online, search for that part number online, or you can go right to the Midwest Steering site. I don't want to push you to a certain supplier or not, but honestly, with this specific, very unique application, I would go right to Midwest Steering. They sell the kit, they sell parts for these pumps, and they're all original parts and kits, right? So you want to kind of go that way, especially because you got to tear down the entire console to get to this pump. You don't want to do this twice. And also when you break this pump open, it's a little bit complex inside there. You don't want to have to do this twice, right? You want to do this once, you want to be done, and I'd say go get the right kit, $150, do the 2 seals. You can change the other O-rings and other things in this pump, but the way I operate is if it's not broke, don't change the seals, right? Like if it's not leaking from an O-ring, and the O-rings don't usually fail, you don't have to change those, in my opinion. You're definitely going to change the shaft seals, but let's say the other seals in there, you can definitely change them, the O-rings and the whatnots, right? But in my experience, if it's not leaking, it's not broke, don't mess with it, right? Let it be and just change what's broken. You'll be just fine. And that's why I have so many extra parts in there still, because I didn't really use anything besides these 2 seals out of that bag. So I'm going to show you what the model number is on this particular valve. I keep calling it a pump. It's not a pump, it's a valve, right? So this is just a steering valve. It's an orbital steering valve. So let me show you that now. Okay, that's the model number right there on the valve, right? It's a little hard to see, but that is it. So the 2 model numbers they have, one ends I think in 98 and one's in 72, but the internals on these valves is all the same. It's just the mounting, the way the valve was mounted on the particular machines or the models of these machines. So there's a flange on this one with 4 bolts, so it mounts to the steering column. That's an integrated steering column with the valve assembly itself, right? But they make them without that. So there's a little different model number, but it's all the same internals and all the same seals for that reason. So that's what you're gonna do. And that's what I did here. I've got a valve now that works great. I put a pair of vice grips on there in between doing all this so I could take the machine and back it out of the garage and pull it back in and do other things to it. So that's why the vice grips are there, but you don't need those obviously. And that's it. So if you have any questions at all about this, and this is a super common issue, perhaps on other models that I haven't owned, and you wanna do this in a budget, this is what you wanna do, right? Don't go out and spend $1,500 on a valve because you can get the kits for the seals and you can change them. If you have any knowledge of hydraulics, basic knowledge, you can change them yourself. It's not complicated. You just got to take your time, and you can absolutely do this. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I've got all the information on the supplier site, how to get to it, and the part number if you need that, or any kind of advice. They also on their site have a very nice manual for free that you can download that shows the parts list for these pumps. So, and that parts listing shows you kind of how to remove. It takes you through the removal, the tearing down of the pump, and it takes you of the rebuilding and putting back together of the pump, right? So they give you that for free. There's an instruction there. That's why I'm not showing it here in my video. They give you a much better way of approaching it. They have it all broken down step by step so they can take you right through it. So that's my advice. Hopefully this is helpful. And if you have any questions, please reach out.